Like a trusted turnout jacket you've had for years, Flex 7 outer shell fabric delivers a perfectly broken-in feel on the very first wear. Flexible, comfortable, and powered with the strength of Enforce technology, Flex 7 outer shell fabric is made to move. To learn more, visit tenkatafabrics.com/flex7. Flex 7, powered by Enforce technology, only from Tenkata Protective Fabrics.
Greetings and welcome to the Women in Fire radio show. Today we're going to be talking about the importance of girls' fire camps and giving back to your community. I want to thank Fire Engineering for allowing Women in Fire to be part of their radio show series. I'm retired Battalion Chief Lisa Baker, and I'm also the Southwest Region Trustee for Women in Fire. Today I have an excellent group of members or panel members here. I have Fire Chief Latosha Clemons, who is in Forest Park, Georgia Fire Department. I have Deputy Chief Heather Mozdean, who's from the Fremont, California Fire Department. I have Captain Erica Enslin. She recently retired from Sacramento, and she is also the founder of the Golden State Women Fire Service. I have Lieutenant Nicole McCall, who's an Oakland Fire Department. Lieutenant Laura Lyons, who's a Des Moines, Iowa firefighter. And then I have Morgan Sangdahl, who is a firefighter at the Peninsula Fire Department in Washington and went to a fire camp Blaze. So today we are going to be talking, as I mentioned, about fire camps and giving back to the community. So many agencies offer fire camps for girls. Many are geared towards the 13 to 18-year-olds, with some going up to 20 years old. These camps may last from 1 day up to a week. The purpose of these camps is to introduce girls to the fire service and empower them to believe that they could pursue a career vocation in emergency services. These camps are sponsored by local and regional emergency service organizations. Some ask, why would girls need an experience like a fire camp to believe they could be firefighters, but boys would not need such an experience? The numbers tell part of the story. Today in the U.S., women account for around 5% of all career firefighters. This means that many girls have not ever seen a female firefighter. For boys or many young men, the situation is quite different. Being a firefighter is something many, if not most, little boys imagine very early in their development. So we're going to go ahead and start the first question with Fire Chief Clemons. So Chief Clemons, as a fire chief, you hosted your first girls fire camp in the history of Forest Park, Georgia last year. Can you describe what that was like to us and why you decided to do that?
Thank you for allowing me to be on this panel, and greetings to all the other panelists. Yeah, most certainly. That was one of the most exciting times in my 3-year tenure as a chief officer in Forest Park, and 2-year tenure as a fire chief there. And one of the things that I always wanted to do prior to me leaving my former organization was host an all-girls camp. Watching Shelley Carter host these camps continuously throughout the years was most certainly an inspiration, and most certainly galvanized my idea to want to host the very first all-girls camp in the city of Forest Park, Georgia. It was so exciting, Chief Baker. I had over 53 applicants and nearly 40 participants. And I got to say, ladies, Chief Baker came all the way down from California to help with that camp. 1-day camp, full 8 to 10 hours, everything fire service, from the history of the fire service to ropes and knots, all that it entails in the fire service. So exciting. The council members were excited about it. The community was excited about it. We had the local middle schools that continuously sent in registration forms for their students to participate. And they're looking forward to attending October 2024 as well. So great experience for the city of Forest Park and the young ladies that attended.
And Chief, I know one of the questions that as the campers were first coming in, you asked them, or your female firefighters that were there assisting is why were they there? And the majority of the answers were, you remember what the majority?
Well, I'm sorry.
What were the majority of the girls said? Why were they there?
The young girls that participated.
Yeah.
Yeah, either their parents wanted them to participate, things of that nature. I
But
tell you, when they first came in, a lot of them were timid. But by the end of the day, they were communicating. They had teamwork. You should saw their level of confidence go from ground zero to skyrocket.
Yeah, and I could attest to it. I was there, and there really was one group that was kind of an interesting group, to say the least. And at the end, they did a competition. And there was some question about somebody on another group that had actually won, them maybe not doing it fairly or whatever. And this group of girls were so mad. And so I said, you know what, let's calm down. Let's just get this right. And I went over and I said, they're going to get the retest, because what happened didn't happen when they went first, right? And those girls were so excited that someone had stood up for them and said, she stood up for us. She stood, and I became like these 6 girls' best friends. They were like, back to Georgia. When are you? I'm like, so yeah, it was pretty interesting to see, especially one girl who really didn't want to be there and wouldn't speak to anyone. And it was just sitting there by herself. And by the end of it, she'd made some friends. She was exchanging phone numbers. And I think her mom was more happy for the girl than the girl was for herself.
Yeah, you definitely were instrumental in their livelihood and participation, for sure.
It's fun. So, thanks for sharing that, Chief Clemons. And we appreciate that you brought that to Forest Park. Okay, so why is it important that agencies host girls' fire camps, and what are the benefits? So anyone could just answer in, chime in.
Thank you, Lisa. This is Erica, for having me on the panel. I think one of the biggest takeaways is the confidence that they leave camp with, no matter whether they decide to go on to a career in firefighting, but they overcome a lot of fears. They get to make new friends. They challenge themselves and come out on the positive side, and they can take that life lesson with them wherever they go.
Chief, we know, historically, the fire service has been predominantly male. And then, since the 1970s, women had been making inroads to how we've been entering this wonderful profession. Still, we continue to have that same conversation that we have a long way to go, being that we only make up 4% and less than that in chief officer roles. So having girls camp not only demonstrate that women can do the job, but also that they can become chief officers.
What's the saying? If you don't see it, you can't be it.
Yep. That is correct.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think, like, coming as a camper myself, representation is just so important. And even as when I was a teenager, I had seen women firefighters before, but I hadn't seen any women that were my stature. And so going to a camp and seeing a variety of women doing the job was super impactful for me and allowed me to be able to see myself in the profession. And I think that was the big game changer for me.
So Morgan, did you have aspirations to be a firefighter before you attended the camp? Or?
So I did. I went to a technical high school. I was actually in the digital media production class, and one of my assignments was to take videos and pictures of the other programs. And so I went into the fire services class, started taking some videos, and ended up just staying there and never leaving. And so I ended up graduating high school from that program. And so I kind of knew that I wanted to be a firefighter around the time I was like 15. And then I went to camp when I was 17. So I kind of knew that I wanted to be a firefighter, but I had only met maybe 1 or 2 women firefighters prior to Camp Blaze. And, I still was trying to decide if it was going to be a realistic option for me.
Very nice. Has anyone else, like Nicole, you're probably the second youngest here, maybe. Did you see female firefighters when you were growing up? I mean, I know you're from the Sac area.
Out in the sticks, I don't know that I ever saw a fire engine with people in it. I think everything just kind of burned down if that was the case. I didn't get into the fire service until I found some people that I have a business administration marketing degree, was working in Eldorado Hills, had a husband-wife couple come through, gave him a tour. He was like, hey, you've got the personality or the perfect stature. I think you make a great firefighter. What do you want to be when you grow up? I'm like, I have a college degree I'm paying for it now. This is what I want to be, obviously. And then he connected me with some people and they did the whole doubt thing. And you're like, watch me, I'll do it, you know? So did the academy. And then there were 5 women initially starting with Sacramento's Firefighter One Academy. 3 of them dropped out the first day. And it was like, oh, like, now I want to do it. So I did it. Attended my first camp back in 2017 as a career firefighter with, I believe it was First Alarm Girls Fire Camp, which is kind of the Bay Area side of it. And obviously with everything, you're intimidated because there's a lot of other women instructors. Us women know how we can be towards each other. So I kind of just hid in the shadow of my mentor, Candace Koshman, who's an engineer here. And then for me, it was cool just to kind of pair up with the campers, kind of see where they were at. Like Captain Enslin said, just watching them go from timid and shy with their painted fingernails and their eyelashes to like, oh, I don't want to get dirty, to like, wait, I get to hold that saw? Oh, wait, my dad has one of those. I mean, I can't touch it. Okay, well, you can touch it. You can run around with it. You can, and then you make it competitive and fun. And then they're like, oh, this is easy. I could do this. And then they realize too, some of the things that they thought they weren't able to accomplish is accomplishable. And I think like Morgan said, being 5'2" and 180 pounds, people are like, oh, she's short and squatty. I can do it, So just kind of, and then on a selfish side, us as instructors, it allows us to mingle and network and be able to come together. And I've used those resources a bunch throughout my career so far.
And I have to give Nicole her props. She is one of the volunteers. I think every camp that I see in the Bay Area, Nicole's going there. So I got to give her props. I mean, she's busy and she still makes time to go. And same with Erica. They're always at these camps. So to the 2 of you, I want to give you my props of always being there and giving back.
You get to watch the girls the campers as they move through their career. You'll get them and they'll be now leading the little camper groups. And then next it's like, oh, I got a volunteer job. Oh, I'm a resident firefighter. Oh, I'm getting picked up at CAL FIRE, So to watch them kind of progress through their career path is extremely rewarding and motivating.
What I thought was interesting was the one in Santa Clara, Los Gatos area last summer.
Sunnyvale,
Sunnyvale, yeah. The ones that had said at the start when they said how many knew of somebody in the fire service, and a lot of them actually did know someone in the fire service, which was interesting. But talking to the girls throughout the camp, asked how many had already been to a camp, and there was probably how many girls at that camp, 30 maybe. And the amount of ones that had already been to a camp and were just going around to all the camps that they could go to, just to like, not even, one of them said, well, I want to get experience for when I get the job. I already know what I'm supposed to do. And I'm ahead of the curve kind of thing. I'm like, wow, okay. There was ones from Sacramento that were, their parents brought them down. They were spending the night. There was, I think, some girls from like the LA area that were there. Mm-hmm. And that was like really amazing to me that they were like, it wasn't if I get the job, they were all like, when I get this job, when I get this job. So I was like, okay, I like your attitude. So you're right. It's funny that even there, some of them were like, when you're giving out the gear, taking, it's like, oh, my mom said I had to come. Oh, my dad said I had to come. And by the end of it, I think there was one that was in your tool group that was like that. And by the end of it, you couldn't get, she wanted to touch every tool and play with every tool there was. It's like, okay, I got to go to the next thing now. So I think that's what's really rewarding seeing is that it just instills the confidence in them, and it builds a teamwork too, because you'll see as they start out as a group, like in Chief Clemons, we put them in groups. We said, okay, come up with a name, and then there was a little bit of downtime, and it's like, okay, it kind of went haywire. Come up with a song or or something. And at the end, they had these skits that they were doing and became a competition. And you could tell that the teamwork from especially the one group that was so all over the place. At the end of it, they were like, so it's fun to watch. It's really fun to watch.
Yeah, I saw the live feed at Chief Clemons, and I wanted to be a part of your camp. So
it's fun. It
looked like a good time.
In October, come on out.
I'll come out. You bet. Yeah, no, I'll add to that. I think when you see these girls that go through this camp and they build those relationships, and a lot of them keep in touch with each other. But for us as mentors, to see them progress throughout their career is it's very exciting. And we have a gal in our camp just passed her EMT test, so that's exciting to see for sure.
Erica or Nicole, do you guys ever keep in contact with any of the campers?
Some of them, and some of them are so dedicated that they once they go through camp and they get on as a sleeper or reserve or an explorer or whatever their program near them has, they say, hey, can I come back and volunteer? And so then we put them as like a crew lead. So, because they know a bit about camp already, they can take the girls around and talk to them and work them through what they've already been through. And then like the next camp, they might be an associate instructor. And so we just try to help them throughout their career also and just level up. And it's been great to watch people progress through those milestones. And we'll get emails and say, hey, I just got hired, or I just got accepted as an explorer. What should I do? What should I wear? How should I act the first day? So it doesn't just stop with camps. There's also a mentorship aspect to it.
So has
Can I
anyone?
add?
Good.
I was gonna say, like, even beyond the fire service, kind of like what Erica was saying was, there's girls that I went to camp with. There were only 24 campers at Camp Blaze when I went through, and probably a good third of us ended up becoming career firefighters. And the ones that didn't ended up pursuing career options where like leadership is really important. So they joined the military, or they became flight nurses, or they're pursuing these fields that really depend a lot on leadership skills. And that was like the big emphasis at camp. So even if it's not impacting the fire service a huge amount, which I think that it is anyways, it's impacting other fields, I think, as well.
You're right. It does teach a lot of leadership and teamwork, I think, every aspect of the camp. So besides Morgan, growing up, did anyone have the availability of a girls' fire camp here? So yeah. So when does anyone know the first fire camp? Morgan and I were talking about this prior to starting the recording. How does anyone know off the top of their head how long girls' fire camps have been around?
So Blaze has been around, this is our 25th year for Camp Blaze. And I believe that the Girls Empowerment Camp in San Diego is the longest running girls camp.
Okay. So now, a couple of years ago, you'd see them not that often. And now I think if you look on any kind of social media, you see more and more agencies that are starting girls' fire camps. So I think the word is out to other agencies, maybe even the city council members, that this is a good idea to have girls' camps. Because as I mentioned, and Chief Clemons mentioned, we're still so underrepresented in the fire service.
Not every department or agency has the ability to staff or put on a girls' camp. So NorCal Women in the Fire Service and Golden State Women in the Fire Service both do like a plug and play type of girls' camp. So we can go to different agencies and help them put on a fire camp for their agency. And so then they don't have to worry about, I don't have enough women on my department. How am I going to get the women? How am I going to staff this? They just don't know really where to start especially if they're a smaller department. So I think that's also an important role, is being able to do that for our community and to give back around our areas that we facilitate. NorCal Women, they do mostly East Bay, and Golden State does like the Sacramento Valley and sort of the North Bay area.
And personally speaking, Erica, I really appreciate that you and I know Katie does the NorCal one.
Kim does.
Kim. I appreciate that you guys have taken that role on, and the amount of camps you guys do every year is amazing. So I appreciate that, and I really commend you for that. So we kind of already talked about this, but what have you witnessed volunteering in a camp? Does anyone have anything to add about what have you witnessed volunteering at a camp? Okay. So do you believe that having these camps helps with recruitment?
Absolutely.
Chief, I can chime in a little bit about both of those. I think you know, talked about we talked about kids you know, changing throughout the course of the camp, but the thing that I like to tell them is, you know, none of this stuff really gets harder. They just get bigger and stronger and they learn the technique. So the first day of camp is the hardest it's ever going to be for them. And if they can develop the skills and the strength when they get older, it's all going to be easier. So if they could do it during this camp, they can certainly do it in a fire academy, and they can do it when they get onto the job. So it's a good opportunity to sort of just lay the framework for a good career. And in terms of recruitment, it absolutely is helping. I think it's helping in tremendous numbers. You know, we can see right here with panelists on the call, you know, and then we can also see from the recruitment numbers. I know in Fremont, we have citizens who have gone to the camp. We're also working with Mission Valley ROP to do their fire science program and a couple of the community college firefighter ones. And we've seen a lot of women starting to get involved in those things. It's really, really exciting. In our Mission Valley ROP program, the first day I walked in there and about half the students were women. I was shocked. So it's definitely working.
So Heather, you made a good point that you're seeing the numbers and it's working. So as a deputy chief, how do you ensure that the girls don't get discouraged? I mean, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. It's creating a culture of inclusion where you recognize and you get your workforce to recognize that traditionally we looked at firefighters as if you're strong enough, you're deemed fit to do the job. But you have to understand that firefighting is dynamic and complex, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. And there's a lot of attributes and values that are in a firefighter that may not be how big and strong you are. It may be your ability to be agile or to think on your feet or to react really quickly to a complex situation. Firefighting is so dynamic that it's not just about how big and strong you are. And so once we can convince the workforce to sort of see that a diverse pool of people with diverse thinking can solve a problem better, we're better off. And women bring a lot of that. Like, we have a lot of smart, really capable women, and some of them are fit and strong. You wouldn't know it by looking at them, but they have more grit and resilience than you see in half of the male recruits. So it's judging a book by its cover, and the more women we get in that are capable and doing a good job, the more it speaks and resounds to everybody else that there's plenty of women that are capable and want to do this job and can be very good at it.
Chief Mozdean had so many good nuggets. One of the things you talked about, inclusion, in addition to inclusion, belonging. When you're looking at DEI, that belonging piece is very important. I took a DEI class just last year and had to come back to council and with my capstone project. And my capstone project spoke to inclusive language. That is very big in the fire service, and how we make women feel that they belong. The inclusive language, fireman, things of that nature. How are we making them feel? What kind of language are we, allowing in our organizations? How do we change the culture to that aspect? Love it. Great nuggets, Chief Mozdean.
Yeah, Heather, thanks for sharing that. I mean, a lot of times when people think of diversity, they think of the basic. I mean, I think you've been on interview panels when you ask a question, what does diversity mean to you? And they start talking about gender and religion and national origin and stuff. But you're right, there's so much more to diversity than just that. I mean, and you're right, women do bring a lot of different aspects to the job than men do. A lot of different, I mean, one of them is compassion. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been on a call and the medic's getting all upset because they don't feel it's like a real medical call or something. And then you take that same call and you put a female there, and more than likely the female's going to be like, okay, I understand what's going on. How can we help you? And so it's just, you're right, Chief Mosdean, you made some really good points. Does any, excuse me, does anyone else have anything to add? Okay, so what are the additional benefits of hosting a girls' camp? Some of the campers may not be interested in a career. I think we've touched on this a little bit as a firefighter, but what benefits can they get out of the camp? So we touched on it a little bit, but if we could expand on that a little bit.
And I think a lot of nuggets that Chief Mosdean just mentioned, just developing those communication skills, teamwork. I think the collaboration, all those soft skills that she just mentioned, I think that's a great benefit in having girls camp, even if they don't want to become firefighters. It's the various other roles and responsibilities and public safety that they may want to enter. They get to, an opportunity to develop those skills that may be a segue or a pathway to other career choices.
Laura, doesn't your camp, isn't it go into other things besides fire service, or no?
So our camp is combined with the military and police, so it's a little bit different, and it's run very well. We've had girls interested in the military and utilize those resources there, and have actually joined. So it's a week-long camp, and each day is kind of specific. If it's going to be a military day, doing their leadership course or other aspects in relation to the military, they'll have a police day, fire day type of a thing. So it's a great opportunity for them to get an idea of what all those three career fields could possibly be like.
So this may be
sorry,
no,
piggyback on that one. At our last camp, we asked, what you guys, what would you like to do when you grow up? And one gal was like, oh, I'm planning on going into the Air Force. And I'm like, oh, have you thought about firefighting in the Air Force? And she's like, I didn't know you could. And our engineer that was pumping the hose station that day happened to be an engineer in the Air Force for Air Force fire. So we got to pair them together, and, she still wants to go in the Air Force, but now she's thinking maybe I can take a different path.
Oh, nice. So this may be a little bit of a controversial question, but do you guys allow men to teach the girls? So usually, I mean, the camps I've been to, it's all the females that are teaching.
We don't.
I think it depends on what resources you have available. If you have enough women or in your area to teach these camps, then try to keep it all women. But if you don't have the resources, I think just getting all the campers together, yeah.
No, I get where you're
going. I would challenge that a little bit and say that I personally think it's important to show the girls that the boys can play nice too. And we didn't have any male instructors at Camp Blaze. Every now and then there is a single male instructor who will come in to teach saws and stuff, and he's fantastic and super empowering. But I think it is something special to show that the male firefighters can come in and and play nice and cooperate and be super empowering and do all of the good things that the women instructors are doing as well.
Golden State, we try to have all women as lead instructors. We have had males in support roles and just helping out behind the scenes and just showing that they're there to help us.
Chief, I kind of feel strongly both ways. Like, I understand the value of having all women instructors. And we've gotten to a point where we have all women instructors that can do all these things great. But I also feel like we can open a lot of the eyes of a lot of our male instructors by showing them how powerful and capable women are. And I think it's important that maybe it's too early in this sort of quest, but at some point we do need to make it more inclusive, where we have women teaching men and men teaching women, and that each one sort of respects what the other one brings to the table. So, but going back to what somebody said earlier, like what makes the girls camp so amazing is being amongst a core group of instructors that are all female and have all been there through the same challenges. And it really makes it so much fun. So I think there's a lot of different sides to this. And you're right, it is a little controversial, but I think in the end, we can all learn from each other, and we should all be accepting and open to learning from each other.
I would agree that kind of thinking back on it, having an all-female staff sort of creates a safe space too, because I think we've all experienced, like, when you make a mistake at work, why did you make the mistake? Well, it's because you're a girl, right? But being in a place where you're surrounded by all female firefighters, you make the same mistake, it's not because you're a girl, it's because you made a mistake and you're human.
Exactly. And I know, Erica, you could probably attest to this too. When we were, because we were in about the same time, I think. When we first started going to classes, whether it be a seminar or something else, it was male instructor, and the majority of the class were males. And there's always that that fear that if you ask a question, you're going to be, I don't know if ridicule is the right word, but because you asked a question because you don't know what they're talking about. So Morgan, you just made it, there's that safe space. So I think when you have all females and females teaching, or it's a male, that Morgan, you made a good point. I think Nicole did before she left, that it has to be males that are supportive of females. You can't just randomly go pick a guy that you know is good with cutting holes on a roof, and he's good with ventilation, come teach this class. And if he doesn't want to be there, let's say you detail him there to teach at the camp, he doesn't want to be there to begin with, and he's not going to be receptive, and it's going to create that atmosphere that we're not trying to create with these girls camps. So I think that Erica, you made a good point in the support roles. Heather, everyone's made good points about it. And there's I kind of agree that with the girls fire camps, because these girls are so impressionable at this age, and we are trying to introduce them to a career in the fire service, that it's better to have the females in the front teaching it, because they see, number one, that, hey, they look like me, I could do this job, they're doing it, I could do it. And then when they ask a question, you're going to be very receptive to them. I'm not saying that males wouldn't, but we know the females that are there want to be there to help the females. And so it's going to be receptive, and you might even go over after and give them additional help with something that they didn't need. So, I mean, and you're right, it's kind of controversial. Do you let the men do it? Do you not let the men do it? In my opinion, if you're going to let men be it, I like how Erica says they're in the background kind of assisting. But I'm not saying all men are bad. Don't think that's what I'm saying. I just think that if you're going to have men at girls' fire camps, that you need to make sure, and not even girls' fire camps, I'm going to go as far as to say a fire academy teaching recruits, and there's females there, that they understand that some females that might be in these fire academies maybe have been to one camp, and they have not really know anyone else in the fire service. They don't know people in the fire service. They haven't been around that culture, and they might ask a question that everybody that has family in the fire service understands that culture, and the females aren't going to understand that culture. So you want to make sure that females and males feel safe being able to ask a question without the fear of, I can't believe you don't know that, or why don't you know that, kind of thing. So
Chief, I think about this too. Like, when I was growing up, I played a lot of basketball. And I think about like my first experience of being able to go to a basketball camp where it was all girls. I felt so much more comfortable. I'm like a 9-year-old, right? And I wanted to play basketball, and I'd been playing with the boys, and they're reluctant to pass to you. The conversations on the sidelines aren't the same. Like there's a lot that goes into it, right? And so if you think about that, and now we have older kids, right? They're teenagers and they're more impressionable. And it's the same thing. Like I coached girls basketball camps all growing up, because when you're learning a skill, it's really important to be in that safe space and to have peers that are going through the same struggle with you. And we still will see, you know, teenagers are incredibly impressionable. And the last thing you want is to be thrown in, you know, with these people who are judging you. So to that point, like, it can't be male instructors that are judging you. You don't want to be amongst cohorts who are like, well, you can't do it because you're weak, even if it's implied and not said. So that's the real value in not only fire camps for girls, but all sorts of camps for girls where it's a safe space. And I know that we're not really going to touch on this, but when I hear people say, well, where are the camps for boys? It's important that there are camps for boys and that the boys shouldn't be in the girls' camps. But you know, maybe we're doing our boys a disservice by not having more camps for boys now, because, you know, whatever. But girls' camp is not the place for boys. It's a place for girls to feel safe and to learn the skills.
And Heather,
I was going to say something about that too, that I've been at a couple camps where there were guys and girl campers, and it absolutely changes the dynamics about how the girls learn and act and are receptive to trying something new or hard, because they still have that internal, I have to look cute for the guy, I have to, you know, be kind of feminine. I can't just be myself and ask these questions like I want to, because this guy that's in my group might judge or, you know, talk to me about it. And it definitely changes the dynamic about how the girls learn.
I agree. Heather, you made a good point that there are camps for boys, but Morgan and I were having a discussion prior to the start of the show, and we started talking about, we're trying to figure out where the first camp was. And Erica, you mentioned San Diego, and I know, I don't know, 1999, I think. A boy put in for a camp, and it was in San Diego, and
that was mid 2000s that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he sued to say he wasn't allowed in the camp, and there was controversy. Did he even put the application in soon enough or whatever? Yep. And so do boys tend to put in for these camps? Have you ever had a boy
we've had one guy put in for our high school camp, and he didn't come back day 2. He was more than welcome. The girls all took him in. It wasn't anything that he was shamed out of it. You know, they were treating him like their brother, because if guys apply, we're not going to say no.
Exactly.
But it is advertised as a girls' camp. And so he just didn't come back the next day. For unknown reasons, we did not follow up and ask. But yeah, that's our only experience of having a guy sign up.
I think when it comes to, you know, whether it's a male camper or male staff, it's probably, like somebody kind of implied earlier, very valuable and impressionable for them, because they're not used to being so outnumbered. So they're in an environment where, like, now they're outnumbered, and it's probably very uncomfortable.
I'm glad you said that, Morgan. I was at a conference, and it was the Women in Fire, and there was one male in the class, and that was his comment. He goes, now I kind of have an idea what you guys feel like. He goes, I feel out of place. I feel like I don't belong. But he said that we were so respectful. He enjoyed being a part of our class, that everyone listens to each other. So I think it was a good experience for him to know what it's like for us. So,
and just to piggyback on that, Women in Fire does have male members. Male members are welcome to join Women in Fire, and there's actually quite a few male fire chiefs that are members. And I think the last conference in Orlando had quite a few male firefighters there, and a couple of them actually did say the same thing to me about this is their words were, this is very empowering, seeing so many powerful female firefighters here. And all the hands-on training was at the Orange County fire training, and they did have guys helping out teaching, obviously, but they were kind of in support roles. And even the guys that worked there were saying, this is amazing seeing the lead instructors being females. So just to let
We
everyone know.
had that same experience. Camp Blaze does a women and fire on our off years where it's like firefighters teaching firefighters and it's all females. And sometimes we have to use burn cadres or somebody from the sponsoring agency, and the guys that have been there come in kind of have attitudes at first, like, oh, what do we got ourselves into, or what are they making us do? And by the end of camp, by the end of the weekend, they're like, damn, you guys really know what you're doing. And of course we know that, but it's nice to, you know, be able to change some minds.
Exactly. I mean, it's still small steps. It's kind of sad that we're in 2024 and we're still trying to make these steps. Or when I was at FDIC in the women's leadership conference, someone in one of the classes I was in said, I don't even know what agency it was. Oh, they just hired their first female captain. And I go, and I didn't mean to say it loud. I go, damn, it's 2024. What are we celebrating, right? And there was a fire chief sitting in front of me. I don't know where he was from. He's like, yeah, what are we celebrating? And I'm like, what? And he's like, no, I agree with you. He's like, we should be asking why is it 2024? And they're just now promoting their first female female captain. And so I was like, yeah, I mean, but if you look on social media, there's still agencies that are like, oh, we hired our first female, or oh, we promoted our first female officer, oh, we promoted our first female battalion chief. And it's sad to see, but it's nice to see, but it's like on the flip side of it, it's like, should we really be celebrating that? I mean, to some degree we should, sure, hey, we're happy this happened, but why is it taking this long for this to occur? So, I mean, I think that's why the girls' camps are so beneficial, because it does expose young girls to the career as a firefighter. Erica, you were in the booth at Triple F Female Firefighters, and
Yep.
there's Tina out of Miami sells dolls.
Metro Dade.
Metro Dade. She sells female firefighter dolls, and you could look it up. It's triple female. What's the website, Erica?
Fierce Female Firefighters, or Triple F dolls.
And they're these dolls that actually have turnout clothes on them, and you could take the turnouts off of them. They have little tools that come apart. And you should have seen how many girls, and I was only there for what, 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes talking to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
How many little girls came over there and saw that doll and just wanted that doll. And then they got the doll and were like, oh, this doll. Or how many said, I want to be a firefighter when they saw the doll. So
Right.
That's amazing. And so, I mean, I got to give credit where credit's due. And Tina making those dolls is I think, going to help a lot as well.
Yeah, and she designed them and came up with the whole idea because she was getting tired of being asked, you know, that, oh, really, women can be firefighters, because nobody had seen a female firefighter. You don't see, I mean, you've got Barbie, and I think Barbie's the only one that is dressed up as a firefighter. So she wanted ones that you could take the gear off, and it had like the axe and the gloves and a hood and the jacket and the suspenders, and it's all designed on what they wear in her department. So,
And it doesn't look
and
like
it's got a blonde one, a brunette one. The blonde one's Ash, the brunette one's Ember, and then Molly is a person of color that has natural type hair. So everybody's represented as best as possible.
And I think that's helping, honestly, because I was in the Women in Fire merchandise booth, and some little girl came over there, and she actually was there last year, I remembered her, with her brothers, and they probably stopped by your booth. They had little turnout gears on and stuff. And the girl ran over to me and said, I'm going to be a firefighter. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, no, really, I'm going to be a firefighter. I'm like, I believe you. And then some girl had like the red fire helmet on, and I'm like, hey, firefighter. And she turned and looked. And so I think it is helping that when you expose them so young, I mean, but that girl for sure wants to be a firefighter. She said, I want to be a firefighter like my dad.
Yeah.
So that's something good to see. I mean, I think those dolls, I mean, a lot of people laugh when you say those dolls are going to help, but just being there in that booth for 20 minutes, seeing the girls see those dolls was pretty impressive. So, yeah.
And there were a lot of dads that bought them for their daughters just because they thought they were so cool that, you know, their daughter could see themselves like daddy does.
Yes. So, and it's not like when you think, some people think of a doll as like how Erica said, it's like a Barbie doll. It's not a doll. It's like in that
It's a
regard.
plush doll. It's a soft
Yeah, that
plush.
they could hold and
Yeah.
stuff. Thanks for getting the website correct for me, Erica. So we've talked a lot about the girls' camps and giving back to the community. So what other ways are there to give back to the community besides girls' fire camps? So everybody's probably either been on an interview to get a job as a firefighter or has sat on an interview panel. I see Heather smiling. And one of the first questions, especially in my agency and where Heather used to work, was, what does community service mean to you? And you'd get people squirming around in the chair, or what have you, or the one year they changed it to what have you done for in your community as far as community service, and you'd get this blank stare and stuff. And it's funny because they'd all sit there and say something, but I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and then when it comes time to do something, it's like crickets. It's like, who wants to go volunteer to do this? Or you send a crew there, and Heather, I know you could attest to this, and they'd get mad they had to go somewhere. Like, well, why do we have to go? It's like, well, we're here for the community. So what other ways, not just as like camps, like I said, but what other ways are there to give back to our community? Not just as females, but as firefighters and such.
So I try to go out and do, it's called Creekside Cleanup, but it's more of a community cleanup. That's once a year, and you go clean out, the trash out of the waterways and just make sure that all the creeks in my town are flowing well. As a firefighter, we call them dog and pony shows. And not everybody's always happy about going out to those, whether it's to a school to just show off the engine, or you're going out to, I took my crew to help rebuild a playground that had burned down. So it was really important that we went there with our fire engine to show that, yes, it burned down and we didn't save it, but we're here to help you rebuild it. So those are things I can think of.
I know in Oakland, they have the program where they go and read in the schools to the kids. They detail an engine company to go to the schools to read to the kids. They have open houses where it allows the community to come in and see your fire station. And generally they had other entities there, such as Red Cross and the earthquake kits and such. But you just made a good point, Erica, about schools. And so we talked about recruitment a little bit earlier. So sometimes there'll be like a job fair or recruitment fair or something where they ask an engine, they call and they ask an engine to come to this event. So I'll never forget the time I got into it with the deputy chief about this, where he wanted me to send an engine to a particular area to do recruitment for the fire department. And I'm like, well, if we're going to send an engine there, we should at least be representing that area that we're serving, the community, because we're trying to recruit people. And if we have a certain demographics that we're speaking to, and the people that the firefighters standing there aren't that demographic, it's kind of the same thing in that regards too. If you can't see it, you can't be it. So as far as recruitment, how important is it to make the engine, and I don't know if you guys have this ability in your agencies or not, for the engine to kind of represent where you're going in your community, because Oakland's a very diverse community, as we know. So Heather, you could attest to it. I mean, we were at 17.
Yeah, I think it is important, right? If you're trying to reach out to a diverse community or a different community, then is what's standard, right? Like your average firefighter in your town. If you're trying to reach out and sort of recruit another group of people, you have to make the delivery as relevant as possible. So if you're trying to get young people to be interested, you need to use your young firefighters. And if you're trying to get your Hispanic firefighters, you need the Hispanic firefighters to go. You need the crew to deliver a message that's relevant, so that you don't have a bunch of people sitting there and saying like, well, I'm not like them. Like I'm not doing what they're doing. They're not like me. And you may get one or two that are like, yeah, I could do that. But that's because we're humans, we're dynamic, and we're not just our skin color or our race or our socioeconomics. Like, we have many different layers that you can't see. So people relate on a different level. But I think really the best you can do to sort of mirror the community you're trying to serve, the better off you're going to be. And that definitely comes through in recruitment. I'm fortunate enough to be in an agency where the fire chief and the deputy fire chief are both female. And when we go out to schools, the girls are like, this is amazing. And when we have entry-level recruits come through our entry-level panels, they say, we want to work for Fremont because the leadership in Fremont is female. So it definitely makes a difference. And yeah, I think it's super important in anything you do. If you're reading to kids, it would help. If you're reading to a bunch of struggling readers, it would help to have a firefighter who struggled with dyslexia to say to them, look, I was in your position, right? Like, then it makes it real for them. So whatever it is that you're trying to, whatever message you're trying to deliver, you have to create a messenger or use a messenger that can deliver that message.
Heather, you just made a good point. It's like, and you hear all the time, firefighters are role models on and off duty, and you'll see, I don't know if you guys follow social media, but you look on social media sometimes, and somebody's done a knucklehead thing in a whole nother agency, a whole nother department's done something. And there was one locally a couple of years ago that did something. And the few people at the gym that knew I was a firefighter asked me, well, you guys do that where you work too? And I'm like, no, we don't do that. Why would you ask that? And they're like, well, they do it there. Don't you guys like all do the same thing? And I'm like, no, we don't all do the same thing. And I don't really know the whole story. I know as much as you did in the, what you read in the paper. And I go, so I don't really know what happened, but I could almost guarantee you that that's not what occurs in my agency. So a lot of I think the general public, when they see somebody, a firefighter, do something that's kind of boneheaded, they kind of correlate it to every fire department. Every fire department is kind of like that. And so, that's another image, I think, that as far as fire department, we need to instill in like the recruits, that you always hear that you're and it's when you go off duty, you're not really off duty. If that I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like you're being judged. How many people you have the union stickers on the back of your car, or the people you see, mostly I don't see as many females because there's not many female firefighters, but they walk around in, some of them in the duty shirts, not even off duty shirts. They walk around in the duty shirts advertising their fire department. I was just, out of town somewhere, and these guys were sitting at a bar drinking, being fools, and had fire department t-shirts on. Now, whether they worked in that agency or not, and it was the agency of the city I was in, I have no idea if they worked there. But it just kind of, I'm looking at it like, and other people were kind of like looking at it too. And it's like, it might be different because we're in the profession, but I'm like, do they realize that they're kind of like, if they do work there, they're advertising that fire department, and what acting a fool is what this is okay? It's just something that people are going to remember, that like, oh, okay, well, they were these guys sitting at a bar drunk using very profanity words. And so I think that we need to kind of instill in the younger generation too, that you're never really off duty, because the majority of people
Chief,
know.
I think that's so true. Yeah, I think it's so true. We definitely need to bring that home, because it's not just when you're wearing your t-shirts. It's if you're a firefighter and you do something or get in trouble with the law, the first thing the news is going to say is this firefighter from wherever did whatever. Because when you take that badge, you are given this level of trust that you don't have to earn. Yep. You don't have to earn. You get to come into people's houses. You get to see them at their most vulnerable, and they don't know you. So the fact that you get that badge, you're sworn to hold yourself to a higher standard, and that's on or off duty. So whether you're wearing a t-shirt or not, if you take the job, you better hold yourself to that higher standard.
I agree 100%, Heather. Not too many people you could just knock on someone's door and they're just going to randomly let you into their house at any hour of the day when they don't know who you are. Does anyone have anything else to add about professional? Kind of got off topic a little bit. We went into professionalism, but it kind of relates to community service, hoping. about professionalism. Laura, you have anything to add, or Morgan? No. Okay, so we've talked about the recruitment with camps, and then we kind of talked about recruitment in general. So Heather, you're probably the best to answer this because you're a deputy. Erica, you might be able to help answer this. Laura, now when you're doing your entry-level tests, Heather, I think you did mention it. Are you seeing more females actually apply to the fire service now?
We in Fremont, we absolutely are. We're seeing more female firefighters apply. We're seeing more in firefighter one academies. We're seeing more in the ROP programs. Our Explorer program is not, it needs to be revitalized. So I can't attest to how many girls we have in our Explorer program. But I do think that all of these things that we've been talking about, I think that they're all working. I think we're seeing, we're getting girls at a young age. We're giving them sort of tools to be successful. We're harboring environments where they can be successful and be vulnerable. And then we've created sort of this process of recruiting and testing that is fair and equitable. And we're looking for a different skill set than necessarily, just big and strong. And so I think all those things are really, they're working. They're working, and we're seeing women get the job, be successful, have long careers, have kids, and still work. All these things, like you can be a mom and you can be a woman and you can be a damn good firefighter. And it's, all of it is proving to be working. And it's really exciting.
It really is exciting. I mean,
I'm not really involved in the hiring processes at my department. And I work for a really small department. There's only 33 firefighters at my department. But when I got hired, there was only one woman here, and now there's 6. So it's a little over 20% of our workforce now are women firefighters. So it's been a really cool change just in the last 2 years that I've been here. So I think that speaks volumes.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's an exciting time to see more female firefighters apply. I'll echo kind of a little bit what she said, but a lot of that too goes with marketing and getting out to career fairs, out to high schools and that type of thing. And the parental leave, and hey, we have policies so you can have kids and still work this job too, is all very important. So it's an exciting time for women in the fire service.
And Laura, you just made a good point, actually, that paternal leave and such and having kids and stuff. I think that when you're trying to, and Heather, you could help correct me if I'm wrong here, and Erica even, but and Morgan as well. So when women are coming into the fire service and you hear a lot of them like, well, I know I was talking to one that wanted to be a firefighter. She's like, well, I want to have kids. So how am I going to have a kid and work, 48 hours, or how am I going to do this? And how much long do I get paternity leave? And you're standing there, you're listening to everything she's saying, and they're very valid points. So it's like now you're seeing more and more agencies come up with paternity leave policies and such like that. So do you think that's helping with getting more females, or when they realize that there are these policies in place that, hey, like I can't have a baby, and there's steps in place that I can have the baby and still come back and be successful?
So when I was writing our family reproductive policy for my department, that was one of the things that I looked into to try to sell it to the chief, was how it can impact recruitment and retention. And there have been studies that show that having some kind of family reproductive policy that includes, maternity leave and pregnancy accommodations, and breastfeeding accommodations, all of that can positively impact retention and recruitment. And that is something that candidates may be looking for.
I was 7 or 8 years into my career when I got pregnant, and at that time we only worked 24-hour shifts, and so I moved closer back to family for the childcare on my days off, or on my days on. And he was 3 or 4 when we went to a 4896. And my sister was like, ooh, I don't know if I want him for, that long. But it actually turned out being easier. She had him just for those 2 days and then off for 4 days. And so it made it easier on my son, easier on my sister, because it wasn't a day on, a day off, 2 days on. We had a weird Kelly schedule. But it was more consistent. So it is definitely possible to do it with a 48-hour rotation. But you just have to really make sure you have a plan in place. I know people that have nannies that come in for those 48 hours, if they're single parents or if they both work on the same shift, or have the nanny there while the partner is off at their 9-to-5 job or whatever else they have. So it's definitely a doable thing. And I know my department is looking at a lactation policy. When I left, I was helping write the lactation policy for our department. And just making sure we have that kind of space, because we're good with the bathrooms, but not everybody wants to pump in a bathroom. So it's moving slowly forward, but
It is. And I think some of us that, I know, Erica, we were in about the same amount of time. The changes that we've seen for female firefighters, it just kind of makes you sit back and smile. The changes you've seen, like when I came in to Oakland, there was no female restrooms. There were no individual dorms or sleeping areas. And so you see that and you just kind of like, okay, we are making progress. And it's like, I had to tell myself many times that it wasn't a sprint, it was a marathon. Everything's not going to happen overnight. So we are seeing changes. I do think, and I do know that the girls' fire camps are helping. And we're about out of time. So does anybody have anything they want to add? So I want to thank each guest for being a part of the radio show. Thank you to Fire Engineering again. Thanks to the listeners and members of Women in Fire, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. And remember to check out our website, which is womeninfire.org, and also to attend our international conference that's going to be held in September 11th in San Diego. Thank you again, and good night.
Like a trusted turnout jacket you've had for years, Flex 7 outer shell fabric delivers a perfectly broken-in feel on the very first wear. Flexible, comfortable, and powered with the strength of enforced technology, Flex 7 outer shell fabric is made to move. To learn more, visit tenkatafabrics.com/flex7. Flex 7, powered by enforced technology, only from Tenkata Protective Fabrics.